John, I think a lot of people have been sort of shocked by some of the goings on. We still have to be very careful how we speak about some of this stuff. Everybody who watches our show knows that you and I go to great lengths to avoid some of the really odious and draconian anti-First Amendment practices in social media. People are going to be able to watch our show tonight on subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen, patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, and Subscribestar and Patreon /crowdsource the truth. Tonight, I'm also going to be utilizing Odyssey.com, a new membership option for our viewers. And John, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Jason. How are you? You look great.
Thank you.
Good to be here on a Friday.
Thank you. I'm just looking at some of the comments. We've got a lot of people. I notice we get a lot of social engineers, John. They're trying to disrupt what we're doing. And we were talking earlier about Twitter and all that. I think you are going to be talking more tonight about some of the goings on. Let's call them November events. We've got 3 coronations and a funeral. What is it that people are going to be hearing about tonight when we make the transition to Subscribestar and Patreon?
Well, it appears that Joe Biden may have been right. We're going to take a look at some stories that were reported a couple weeks ago when Joe Biden was at the auto show. And and Joe Biden, the president, what do they say? That even a broken clock is right twice a day, right? So you don't have to fix the clock as long as you only look at it twice a day at the same time, right? So now, if you look at the clock,
we've got to be careful about this, John, because if you and I said this, we'd surely be thrown off of YouTube. But just to remind people that the putative president of the United States, Joe Biden, he said the pandemic is over. He said it in Detroit at the Detroit Auto Show. I don't know if he's right. Joe Biden says a lot of stupid stuff, but they let him stay on YouTube.
I think they did. I think he hasn't been kicked off. Now, former presidents have been kicked off of various platforms, but Joe Biden has not yet. So we're going to look at, was Joe Biden right? And if so, what would the evidence be? And we're also going to look at the election results and the coronation of a couple of individuals that may have surprised, sort of surprise wins. And we're going to take a closer look at that. And then we have some video clips that we're going to look at when we go to our patron-only segment. When we go to Patreon and Subscribestar, we have video footage from the World Economic Forum of the CEO of YouTube explaining the difference between high quality content and what we do. Right. So, we're basically the Sanford and Sons of information, right? This is the junkyard as far as, but as far as she's concerned, this is just junk, right? This is just lousy. And MSNBC, they've got it going on, right? They're going to get, right? So we're going to talk about that. We're going to listen to it in her words. I don't want to paraphrase. I don't even want to paraphrase it, right? I want to hear it in her words. And so our patrons are going to get to hear that. So, but Susan's our host. So I'm very grateful to be here on YouTube and streaming live. And we'll hear what the CEO of YouTube had to say at the World Economic Forum a couple weeks back. If you want, we can go to the deck and let's share a couple slides with the YouTube audience on sort of what's been happening with these elections and all that kind of stuff. So why don't we take a look at the deck and see what we got? What's that? I hear music.
That's Sanford and Son.
Oh, I like it.
But it's like a funk version. It didn't quite have the effect I wanted. Yeah, I wanted it to be that.
Well, that was kind of last minute. Very impressive.
Didn't work.
All right, so this is my my little channel thing on Elon Musk's platform, where I guess Gigi Hadid won't be reading my tweets anymore. So that's a real heartbreak.
Who's Gigi Hadid?
Gigi Hadid is some runway model, and she and
Bella
her sister,
Hadid.
Bella and Gigi, both are off of Twitter. So
Why?
I guess they won't be looking at any of my charts anymore. I guess because Elon's a really bad guy. Something about electric cars and rockets has them very upset,
Oh,
and they're off of Twitter. So a lot of people getting off of Twitter. A lot of liberals are out of their minds and leaving Twitter. And so there you go.
She calls it a cesspool of hate. It's interesting, John. Let's just talk about this for a second because, you and I and the other co-hosts who participate in the sponsor exclusive premium shows on Subscribestar and Patreon, the main reason why we started that, obviously any business, whether it's Twitter, this, whatever, you need money to run it. And it was obvious that when we were trying to do these videos on YouTube, first of all, they were kicking the videos off. Second of all, tons of inauthentic accounts were coming in there and disrupting our viewers, disrupting you, disrupting me, I should say, just trying to disrupt the flow of the show. And by introducing a nominal fee for as little as $5 a month, people can support the show, but what it also does is that it makes it so that it is very difficult for somebody to run a troll campaign where they have 100 or 1,000 fake accounts trying to attack the chat like that. And the same thing holds true for Twitter. I really don't understand why people can't get this. And again, I'm not defending Elon Musk. You and I have had several conversations about this assault that occurred outside Twitter and the evidence that causes me to believe that Elon Musk's security played some role in that. So I no longer like or trust Elon Musk. Oh, I don't know if I told you this. Earlier today, I was mentioning this to David Hawkins, but very, very early this morning, John, I received a note from Twitter, which basically contradicts, in my view, unless there's some mistake, this contradicts what Elon Musk said, because I basically sent this to their tech support saying, hey, can you reinstate @CS the truth? And they just said, sorry, you were engaging according to this in targeted abuse. They don't tell me what that behavior was. They don't give me an opportunity to have due process to defend this. They just said, sorry, you're out. Did you or did you not, and do you recall, did you hear Elon Musk say that the First Amendment was going to guide and that as long as people say things within the context of the law, it would be allowed and that permanent bans shouldn't be there unless you do something outrageous and criminal? Doesn't seem to be true. So can we trust Elon Musk?
I think we're in this transition period where he let go of a whole bunch of senior executives. So all the mid-tier executives are freaking out, right? Nobody feels safe. And that's probably okay. But advertisers are leaving the platform. And one of the stories that came out recently is Twitter going to go bankrupt? Because, right, so, and is he going to end up, it's like a game of musical chairs where he funded this thing at $44 billion and borrowed $1 billion here and $1 billion there from his friends. And if you have enough friends, you can raise $44 billion. And that's kind of what he did. And if Twitter's revenues are going to tank, it's going to be interesting. Now, I think they need to just settle down.
Who?
Because Twitter, the company, needs to settle down and focus on what they do well. And
which is nothing.
Exactly. Stop monkeying with it. Just let it be. Let the market do it. Don't, if somebody's cutting kittens in half, get those tweets off of there. You want a job to do? Get rid of, right? Anybody's killing puppies, killing kittens, get those things off of there. That's your job. Other than that, and Nazis and, it's a short list. There's a handful of things.
Hang on a second, though, John, because there's a couple of things I want to ask you about specifically. And, we've spoken many times about how you've been in the software world and everything. He is kind of going in there a little bit swashbuckling. They launched this new version of Twitter Blue that allowed people to get verified and was linked to an $8 per month subscription. But just in the few days that it was active, they announced earlier this morning that it's being suspended because so many of the verified accounts were shown to be obvious impersonations. Someone impersonating Jesus Christ, which is going to insult and offend a lot of people, impersonating George W. Bush. It was an obviously terrible rollout, very Elon Musk. But the other thing that's happened is Musk came out early in this process and said that he supports this dude, Yoel Roth. You familiar with this guy, John? He was a trust and safety guy.
Yeah, I've heard the name, but I don't know more about it than that.
Said the Trump supporters were Nazis. But surprisingly, Yoel Roth, despite having Elon Musk's support, he quit. So I think this might not be playing out exactly the way Elon Musk wanted to. We don't really know what he wanted, but it doesn't look good right now.
Again, I think time heals most wounds. And Twitter can be a very powerful platform if the Twitter people would just leave it alone and let the marketplace, decide what tweets are popular and which ones aren't.
But isn't it the case, John? Isn't it super likely that the same people who come into our show or previously did before we had subscribestar.com and patreon.com and a nice environment for actual viewers who appreciate the show, isn't it true that it's extremely likely that all of these problems with the verification are deliberately caused by agitators and social engineers who want to cause Elon Musk's purchase to fail?
I think I said it verbatim. I think I came out and said that I think Bill Gates has almost single-handedly gone on a rampage to discredit Elon Musk. Bill Gates is jealous of Elon Musk, right? Bill Gates didn't build any rockets. Bill Gates didn't build any electric cars. Bill Gates stole the CPM software and called it MS-DOS and then sold it to IBM. Now, that's my allegation based on fact and what do you call it? Fact and findings?
Based on information and belief and evidence in the public domain that causes me to believe that. You want to eliminate...
I was an expert. I was an expert in CPM. So I knew CPM before MS-DOS. So
just quickly,
I know
when I'm saying those
I know
things,
what was what.
I'm trying to establish, when I'm saying those things, I'm trying to establish that the forthcoming statement is my opinion based on public information that anybody can see, so that somebody can't come along and say, ooh, you stated this as fact. I want it to be very clear to people when I'm stating an allegation based on my opinion formed from evidence. It's not secret evidence that only I see. It's public evidence. That's why I say all that.
Same thing. So CPM is an operating system that existed before MS-DOS. And I used to sell CPM-based systems. And then MS-DOS came along. I was like, well, this is the same damn thing. I mean, it's almost identical. And this is before Windows. And so, in the industry, it was sort of the unmentioned thing, like what has been happening with influenza and this other stuff. Like people just don't talk about it, or how many people died of COVID in China. Nobody wanted to talk about it. And CPM and MS-DOS were almost identical. I was like, well, what was the big innovation here? And then he sells it to IBM or licenses it to IBM as PC-DOS. And that's how he made, he and Ballmer made a
same
fortune.
Processor.
And Allen, so that's the original story. Why don't we go to the deck before we run out of time? Let me show the YouTube audience a couple of these slides. And I wanted to sort of weigh in on what happened in this past week and what is done and what's not done. So last week, we looked at a quote from Mark Twain where he said if voting made any difference, they wouldn't let us do it. So those were his words, right? So we said that last week, and then we said, well, let's see what happens. Now, at the same time, something remarkable happened. And let's go to the next slide in the deck, because this kind of sets up something I want you to show the audience in real time. I want to read a quote from William Shakespeare. And this is from William Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. And this was spoken by Mark Antony in this play. And Mark Antony says, I come to bury COVID, not to praise. Now, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, right? So this is a little bit different. So he says, I come to bury COVID, not to praise it. The evil that men do lives after them. The good is oft interred with their bones. So let it be with COVID, said William Shakespeare.
It's evil, isn't it?
Well, we're going to take a closer look. Now, why are we burying COVID? Well, first of all, Joe Biden on the next slide said, pandemic's over. This is CBS News. CBS News reports Biden says COVID-19 pandemic is over in USA. Now, if you look closely at the date on that, this was back in September 19th.
Yeah. How could CBS tell us that?
So CBS and Biden said it was over back in September. So now we've had a couple weeks to see, okay, you guys sure, right? Is that what the data indicates? So let's jump to the next slide. You guys remember the map. Now the map is interesting because to get to the map, we used to go to Drudge Report.
Oh, right.
And the middle column in drudgereport.com, if you go to drudgereport.com, let's pull that up live for the audience. That's how we used to go to the map. And every day, Drudge Report would report how many people died of COVID, how many cases there were, and how many cases and deaths there were a year ago on the same week. And then there'd be a link, and they called it the World Sick Map. Well, if you go up a little bit, go up now, it's not there anymore.
It wants me to buy an inflatable fishing boat.
Well, that's almost the same. It's almost the same as COVID. That'll kill you a different way, right? You can ask a whole bunch of people, but so you drown in that thing. But they're not reporting on COVID anymore. So the COVID contagion map, what is that?
Oh, that's something
Crypto.
Else. Something with the failed exchange.
Yes, a different story. So the point here is that when Drudge Report has been reporting on this for 2.5 years, that link to that map, that's what got me started. That's how I found the damn thing. And it's gone. So Joe Biden said it's gone. Drudge Report isn't reporting on it anymore. Now, I still have the links to the map, right? I still push a little button here on my Stream Deck. I use the Elgato Stream Deck, which the show is not supported by Elgato. If it was, right, I'd have a nicer hat.
What do you mean?
But it's
not sponsored by, but it works when that thing works.
Oh, it works
right?
great.
So it's
I press a little button.
They don't pay anybody.
Right. So we don't get anything from them. They don't send us free shirts or hats. If they did, the hats would be better than these hats. So if I hit the little button on the Stream Deck, up comes the map. So it's still there. It's just not on Drudge Report. So if you go to the next slide in my deck, we'll take a quick look at the United States with over 1 million people dead. And globally, 6.6 million people have died. The white chart on the right is deaths. So deaths are pretty low. In fact, deaths are kind of lower than at any point since the initial outbreak, right? You see the white chart, right?
Yep.
Exactly. You got it. Yep. So the deaths are kind of low. That's globally. And if you go up one side, you'll see kind of the same phenomenon in the USA on the side above this one. Same thing. The white chart kind of shows that the deaths are kind of trailing away and are, for the most part, lower than they've ever been since the initial outbreak. Right? So that's kind of good. So it seems it's going away. So let's just take a couple quick sort of tip of the hat, right? This is, rest in peace, COVID. We're here to bury COVID, not to praise it, right? So we want to share just a couple of observations. So I pulled some of the numbers. This is from Worldometers or Worldometers, depending on which side of the Mississippi you live on.
Right.
And this is sorted by population. And I'd like you to look in the chat, and I want to go to the audience and ask the audience how they feel about an award show, because I'm like jonesing to wear my tux and do an award show based on geography, right? Based on maps. And I got these trophies. I don't know if you've seen these trophies. This is the little Immuno trophy.
Right.
So I'm ready to give these things out, right?
The only trophy that we're not allowed
solid
to
gold.
use.
These are solid gold, by the way. These solid 24 karat gold. So these are everybody wants one of these. All the kids want one. All right, let's look at the data.
The only award that we're not allowed to use is a statuette of the, it's very laid out in the default judgment against Multimedia System Design, Inc. The Emmy statuette depicted holding a COVID-19 molecule is not allowed. Care Bears are fine. The slide.
Congress cares. Congress cares, Bears.
Oh.
All right, let's go to the data. Go back up to the data. Back up to the data,
okay.
because we're not ready for the coronation yet. The coronation's coming. So
Okay,
the
5
data.
minutes.
We're here to bury COVID, right? So China, according to Worldometers, China's got 5,000 people dead. Now, you've got to call me old-fashioned or something. I find that odd, given that they called it the China virus. So how does this Worldometers continue to exist on all these different platforms when they say that 5,000 people died in China? Okay, so we go on to the next country by population. That's India. And India had about 500,000 people die of COVID. Okay, but India's got a lot of people. In fact, the population of India and the population of China, it's almost the same. It's
Is
almost
USA
identical.
the largest number of deaths of anybody?
Oh, with 1 million people
Wow.
dead, we've got twice as many people dead as India, even
Wow.
though India has 4.5 times our population.
Wow.
Somehow China, according to Worldometers, only has 5,000 dead. Now, the WHO says that China has 29,000 dead, a little over 29,000. So the WHO and Worldometers and Johns Hopkins, none of them agree on China. I can't help that. I'm just reporting that. And then we go to Indonesia. And the thing that's interesting about Indonesia is the country with the population closest to the United States. Okay?
They got 100.
280 million people.
You got to have worse medical stuff in Indonesia than in the United States, no?
Well, with a population, let's see, they've got 278 million people, and we've got 334 million people. So, they've got more than 2/3 of our population, and yet only 159,000 people died to our 1.1 million. I don't know. I guess they don't have telephones there, and Gavin Newsom doesn't want to talk to anybody in Indonesia because he's got 100,000 dead in California.
He's talking about running for president.
He won re-election. Nobody seems to care that there's 100,000 dead in California. Nobody cares.
That's crazy.
Those are just facts. So we're going to take a closer look at these when we go Patreon only. Let's go one more slide. We'll talk about the coronation because a couple people won. This is actually one of the staff shirts from the new Senate office. So Fetterman is being given an office. Yeah, these are the shirts that the staff wears so that he knows his name, where he works, and where he's from. And so all the staff wear these shirts so that when he's speaking to the camera and they say, and you are, and he says Fetterman. And they say, and where are we? He says, U.S. Senate. And you're from Pennsylvania. So it's all there for him right there on the shirt. It's like having cue cards as outfits. And this has been very, very successful. So I did a quick search. Again, this is a coronation of the senator. This is fantastic, I think, for people with learning disorders and stuff like that, that it shows that we have a lot of opportunity. Let's go to the next slide. I did a quick search on Fetterman's neck, and this is what came up on the image search. We talked last week with our patrons about the conjoined twin that might be growing in there. And wondering, does it have hair? Does it have teeth? I don't know what's going on in there, but it kind of looked a bit like the South Park nurse, the conjoined fetus lady. So what it feels like, and what we're going to talk about when we go patron only in just a couple minutes here, is Jerzy Kaczynski's Being There. Peter Sellers starred in the movie. It's on the next slide, called Being There, and this is where Chance the gardener, a very simple man.
I thought his name was
Chance the gardener, and a very simple man, reminds me of my daughter, right? So my daughter has severe autism, right? He looks like an adult autistic guy to me.
Is that what he was supposed to be?
Very simple.
They don't even.
I don't know that we even knew what autism was. Right. In 1970, I don't think we called it autism. We just called it retarded.
What's wrong with this guy? Right.
Yeah.
1979,
So back then,
that movie came out.
And the book is from 1970, and I read the book in school, and it was a phenomenal book. And they did a decent job with the film, but the book was remarkable by Jerzy Kaczynski. And
you're right,
it feels like we're there.
But why did I think it was Chauncey? Isn't that the joke throughout the movie, that everybody thinks it's Chauncey?
I don't know. It's Chance the gardener, and all of his allegories have to do with the garden. and there's a spoil alert as to what happens at the end of the story. But it's phenomenal, and it feels like it's coming true. And we're going to explore that when we go Patreon only. And I've got my my COVID test here. This is the Flow Flex.
Are we going to do that on camera? You'll test it? How long
No, because COVID's gone. How could I possibly have COVID if nobody's got COVID? How would I have COVID?
If you've had it in sometime in the past or something?
No, I got a new idea. So I'm going to start collecting unopened COVID tests, because 50 years from now, when I'm 140, these are going to be worth something. Yeah. Oh yeah. So
you know something funny about this movie, John? I actually saw this movie in the theaters as a little kid, and I remember having no idea what the hell was going on and being incredibly bored by it. But my parents took me to see this movie.
And now it's like, if you watch the film now, you're like, oh my God. This is where we are. And that's what we're going to talk about when we go.
Sorry to interrupt, but we've got to break. We'll be live on subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen and patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, as well as subscribestar.com, patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, and Odyssey. The premium show, the sponsor exclusive episode, will now be available to members on Odyssey as well. Join us in less than